What's happening, guys? In this video, I want to cover some fundamental string writing tips. While this is a massive topic that I could general kind of make a whole course on by itself, I want to touch on some of the most crucial mistakes and most common mistakes that I hear both inside and outside of this course, and how you could potentially fix them. So I'm not going to overwhelm you with too many things, but if you focus on these key areas, I think your string mockups are going to become a lot better. So let's look at the first issue. So when you are orchestrating, or recording, most people go into a library, they pick a patch, and they just go at it. They just record whatever comes to mind. And sure, that can work in a lot of scenarios, but what a lot of people do as a mistake is to think of the instrumentalist as the same thing as a patch in a library, which is just not the case. A real violinist, for example, can switch between all kinds of articulations in the blink of an eye. Patches don't really exist in real life. They're just meant to, have different categories for you to choose from. And too many people kind of get stuck with one patch for whole musical passages, while a real instrumentalist would very likely switch between different articulations in one single passage. So, mistake number one is to only use legato patches. So let's listen to what that sounds like. So that's a little musical phrase that's only recorded with a legato articulation. And while it sounds okay, it's probably not how a violinist would play it. I'm a violinist myself, and I kind of did a quick mock-up here that switching between short and long articulations that's layered together kind of create more realistic representation of how I would personally play it, which is more like this. So that's a mix between short and long articulations, kind of creating better phrasing. Let's listen to the old one again. This is basically just a long string of notes. Here you suddenly have a bit more accents and a bit of more phrasing. And if we zoom in, I have used a short articulations, a staccato articulation to kind of accentuate the main notes. And then in between, I've used legato notes to kind of bind some of them together. And this is creating a little mix of the shorter and the longer notes. That's one example. And the same thing kind of goes for staccato articulations as well. A lot of people just go ahead and if they have any kind of like short string parts, it's usually just most people when they're recording short strings as well, it's usually just while a real violinist would probably have a little bit more of a variation. While a real violinist probably would have a bit more of variation. So let's listen to two differences with this little pattern that's played only in staccatos first, then a little mix of that and a legato patch. And now a blend of legato and staccato. So that suddenly sounds a little bit more realistic. And of course, this is not the perfect mock-up. I have just tried to kind of get this point across and get you to understand the difference between them. And a lot of the work here is basically just, first of all, the mindset of trying to emulate a real player and not just using a patch and recording that, but just as much having the patience to just sit and kind of tweak each note so it sounds more like what a real violinist would do. Let's just listen to the difference one more time and then move on. Let me just play like a little horn melody as well over that, just to give it even more musical context. Let's see. Very rough, but you kind of get the idea. The strings sound way more alive and less robotic in the background. So let's summarize. The first mistake and how to fix them is just using one patch, where a live instrumentalist probably would have a combination of short and long notes. And the way to fix that is to put yourself into the place of the instrumentalist and have the patience to tweak a mix of legato and staccato patches, or whatever patches fit what you're going to do the best. All right, let's look at my next tip. One thing that I see a lot of people kind of overcomplicate is combining different string sounds. A lot of people, when they're trying to get a big, lush string sound, they try to add in as many elements and different melodies or different voices as possible. But actually, one of the most effective ways to get a massive string sound is to layer the strings in octaves. Here I have a little string melody over these chords, the same chords as before, that is layered in 3 octaves. We have a main violin octave above in violins as well, and then an octave below in cellos. And this is resulting in a massive kind of soaring Hollywood sound. So sometimes when you want a really big melodic statement, just simply layering strings in octaves can give you really big results. The string instruments have a very rich sound, and when you layer them in octaves, you really get some beautiful, beautiful, lush statements. Let's move on. Another problem I see quite often is that people only use sustain, legato, and staccato patches. For example, with strings, you can do so many things. You can pluck the strings, you can use the back of your bow, you can do tremolo articulations, you can play closer to the bridge, you can play on top of the fretboard, and all of these things are going to give you different results. So I've opened Albion 5 here, which has a lot of very interesting string articulations, and just show you kind of different options that you have. So for example, you have flautando articulations, which are very lush and soft. Which are going to give you a very different sound and texture and also expression than just normal sustains. Or we have these brushed sol ponticello articulations. This is playing, very close to the bridge and giving a way more raspy, harsh texture, which can be really good for more tense scenarios or even trailers, for example, or an action scene. And here we also have a concertino patch, which is playing with a mute, which is going to give a much warmer, rich sound. If you move over here, we can check out some of the pizzicatos as well.